Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies today, the 28th of June 2024. Actually, the last for June. So we're really happy to see the day going this fast. Thank God for it. Today, we will be looking at a number of stories that are actually on the front page of the paper. So do remember you can be part of the program. Drop your comment, your views, because they are always welcome. We would love to know what you think about some of the stories that are on the paper. I am Sele Elisha Dasham, and of course, I'll be doing the program with Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Morning, Sele.
How you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm great, thank you so much. All right, let us run through the papers, and I will be starting with the Blueprint newspaper. ECOWAS need $2.6 billion annually to counter terrorism and others. You can find more detail of that on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. 80.2 billion fraud Naira Bello seek transfer of trial to local judge because he is supposed to be tried in the FCT, but he is seeking that he should be tried in Kogi State. So you can do well to find more detail of that story on page 9. NPA generates 501 billion naira revenue in 2023 coming from Bello Cocoa. And on sports, we have Lukman wins Atlanta Player of the Year award. More detail found inside the paper. And the big news on the paper, troops eliminate 2,245 terrorists. Arrest 3,682 in the second quarter of 2024. Rescue 1,993 kidnapped victims. Recover 10.5 billion naira worth of stolen oil. Neutralize 5 suspected IPOP members. More detail of all the successes can be found in the paper. Tinubu set food security target for governors. OK's $1 billion agri initiative. You can start reading on the front page and continue in the paper. Coming from Abdul Salami, with the Nigerian spirit, we will overcome our travails. Wike Ozeyom differ on dividends of democracy. You can find that in the paper. 41-year-old female Don named Uni Abuja acting vice chancellor. You can find that on page 13. National Assembly extend implementation of the 2023 budget to December. Southern governors back state police resource control. And downside of the paper, Wike bags this Nigeria Infrastructure and Leadership Award. More detail found on page 6. And we have a picture story. You can do well to get the paper and read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Daily Independent newspaper, rising debt interest payment may push Nigeria towards debt default. You can start details on the front page and continue on page 28. National Assembly extends implementation of 2023 Budget Supplementary Appropriation Act December 31st. Surveillance operatives uncover oil bunkering camps, perpetrators in Bayelsa. Tinubu asks governors to meet food security target, rolls out construction program. Details can be found on page 29. On food crisis, federal government states to distribute free fertilizers to farmers. We won't allow Tinubu suffer Malawian Iranian president's fate. This is coming from Senate President Akpabio saying the president hasn't requested approval for any presidential jet. You can find details on page 7. Edo Ondo Guba, we won't allow anybody to snatch run with our victory, a statement from PDP. Troops repel attack on Ebonyi police station, kill 5 terrorists, kill 2,245 terrorists, rescued 1,993 kidnapped victims in the second quarter of the year. EFCC boss orders arrest of officers for assaulting hotel worker. Cut governance costs, top aircraft purchase, Ezekome tells Tinubu. Details can be found on page 6, still on the Daily Independent. Minimum wage. Let's pay according to our ability. This is coming from the Southern governors. NEC approves board members for NDPHC. Details can be found on page 7, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Igbo apprenticeship scheme. How lofty entrepreneurship system undermines school enrollment. And we can see the picture story here. Easy go to school, but where are the jobs? And actually, it's kind of funny, Rachel, looking at it, but it turns out to be that Maybe that is a reality, because it makes it look as if those who are not literate are the ones ruling the literate, because with your certificate there's no job. And right now you've heard that over and over, where people say school na scam. But because the reason why you go to school and you have nothing to show for it. But I hope that we do not grow with that mentality. Of course, we know that, giving example here, the Igbo apprenticeship, they already have this culture whereby you train a younger person, show him the in and out of the business, and eventually how they realize. And then let's even look at entrepreneurship entirely. That is why we're seeing that it's even been introduced in our school curriculum right now, that you don't just concentrate on the books, but you're also taught a little of entrepreneurship courses, so that you can be able to stand on your own. So, it actually made me laugh and took my mind back. I had to cast my mind with easy go to school books and all of that. But I hope that we don't grow up with this mentality that school or education is not important. Education is extremely important. So I think this is just a way to lighten the mood, so that people don't get carried away with the hardship that is going on presently in the country.
I mean, Sele, the slogan of saying school na scam, or whatever that statement is, when you look at it, is actually true to a large extent. But what is not scam is education. And that's where we are mixing it up, because the fact that you went to school doesn't mean you're educated. So it doesn't automatically means you are employed. Because what we know for sure about education is that we have formal, informal, and then the one that is a little bit mixed in between when it comes to education. So as long as you are educated, you are expected to make ends meet. For the trader here, he is educated in his trade and he is cashing out. For sure, he is educated, be it formally or informally, he has some form of education. So just as you said, our school curriculum are taking shape, and it's a good thing, so that in the end, school na scam will not really stand, because when you look at it, it feels that way. But when you are educated and you've gone through the four corners of your school, and you've truly allowed yourself to be enlightened, you will realize that even when you come out, and you are educated, you don't need somebody to give you an employment letter. And this is where we have the whole self-employed, self-made this and that is because you are educated. And then your education opens your eyes to the gaps in your society and what you can capitalize on and make ends meet for you. So it might sound that way because of our system, Sally, that it looks like when you go to school, there's nothing to show for. There are no institutions for people. There are a lot of costs that when you look at it in the Nigerian schools, you will see that it looks like a waste of time, because when you go out, there are no industries for you. There are no sectors for you. It's just by title that you read certain things in school. But where do you get to put your knowledge into practice? We are actually lagging behind when it comes to that. But in the end, school is not a scam. Just go there, get educated, and then come out on top.
While you were saying you go to school and there's nowhere for you to work, I just couldn't help but cast my mind. You'll be so proud to see I read biochemical, and then you're like, okay, where are you working? Because the refineries are not really functioning. So I mean, it's one thing for you to study certain course, but just like you said, we need to differentiate schooling from education, and I hope that we can merge the two together. So even in your trade, there will be this difference in the way you carry out your business. So you can read more detail of that on page 4 and 5. Court halt removal of Sokoto district heads, asks government to maintain the status quo. You can find that on page 28. And on the issue of cholera, Castina confirms 2 cases, 118 on the watch, and we really need to do something. It seems to be spreading very, very fast. So for the northern governors, I hope you're also planning what you need to do to curtail the spread from going further. More detail of the issue of the cholera you can find on page 28. And Mohbad's family gets court note for private autopsy. Mohbad family gets the court note for private autopsy. Oil refineries back Dangote, decry IOC alleged sabotage. Economic Council silent on minimum wage as VP proceeds. A power bill to approve request of JET as National Assembly the validity of 2023 budget. Akpabio to approve request for jets as National Assembly okays the validity of the 2023 budget. Stakeholders tackle the NDDC over church building initiative. More detail as well can be found on page 27, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, T.Y. Danjuma Mutfang Abu Jerry Ghana orders Storm Yola for Gongola Ethnic Nationalities Unity Awards. The big story on the paper, new presidential jet, Tinubu's wish, Senate command. This is coming from Akpabio, says lawmakers will give speedy approval if president requests for new fleet. Swiftly adds no request for presidential jet before Senate. After rowdy session, National Assembly grants Tinubu's request, extends 2023 budget. Try me in Kogi, Yahaya Bello right court as lawyer applies to withdraw from case. PDP has failed us, says Fubaram. 2027, only LP can give Peter Obi victory, a statement from the vice chairman. Court restrains Sokoto government from dethroning two traditional rulers. EFCC chairman orders arrest of operatives for beating up Lagos hotel worker. You can find details inside the paper. People's revolt. Nigeria may be next after Kenya ex-DIA chief warns Tinubu as citizens give President Ruto 48-hour ultimatum to resign. Governors establishing varsities they can't fund. This is a statement from ASU, and you can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
This is a very big one, Rachel, coming from us to the fact that governors establishing universities that they can't fund, and just can't help but actually agree with them to some extent, because if you go out there, you realize that certain universities, state universities, are actually not being funded the way they should be. You go to some of them and it look like a glorified secondary school, and you just can't help but wonder what is happening. So I think something needs to be done before we have all these varsities being established by our governors. They should think this through and make sure that everything that is needed for the school to run will actually be running. Now, the main thing I just want to add up is the issue of what the ex-DIA is warning president about people's revolt. And Rachel, you just can't help but see the signs somehow from the body languages of people, especially presently with the hardship people are going through. You just cannot help but say maybe they might be actually true, because I remember you and I were talking about the issue of the protest and the fact that it's because of the tax that was being put on the Kenyans, and that was the reason why they had that protest. And here we see they're also giving him 48-hour ultimatum to resign. So you just can't help but, when you do not do what you're expected to do, the people will have to take, you know, they take the action on their own, because they were waiting for you to do the right thing, and you're not doing the right thing by them. Talking about taxes, we pay tax, and then Rachel, even a small child buying biscuit pay tax for Christ's sake. So, and then you cannot help but wonder, so why are we not having things working that the way they should? It's one thing for the government to tell us they're establishing roads. So what would we do with roads where we don't have food to eat, where we are not protected enough to go to our farmlands? So these are some of the things that people can actually revolt to if we do not do the right thing. So I just hope that the president will sit back with his cabinet and analyze what should we do. Here we are saying, Senate is saying, if the president needs a new jet, your word, your wish is our command. Well, let's just see how this whole thing turned out to be. But I hope that beyond all of this, the people should be at the center of this. So whatever decision you want to take, think about the people. And I believe that with this, we'll be able to grow and be a nation that other people will admire from afar.
Tella, if you look at what happened in Kenya and even our own policies, and yet Nigerians haven't really done much about it, I just can't help but actually believe the president that we just have this elasticity when it comes to dealing with hardship than others. Now, for sure, we do not know what the tax system for sure exactly as it is in Kenya and what it would have meant for their new wages at the end of the day when tax were deducted and all of that. But when you look at our monetary policies and what it did within a short period of time, it would have been enough for Nigerians to take the street and ask President Bola Tinubu to resign or take back his statement. But we didn't do that. We just adopted and to the circumstances, and we moved. No palliatives whatsoever. We kept on thriving. No promises met whatsoever. Nothing. No minimum wage whatsoever. Labor haven't gone on any strike, and we just keep moving and giving. Nigerian government have gotten the longest rope ever. I mean, in every system I've seen, like have had the longest rope when it comes to the people, just giving them ropes and ropes after keep cutting more yards, and yeah, oh yeah, take this extra 60 yards. We did not do well. Oh yeah, take 100. And I see it that way. That's how much elasticity is when it comes to condoning with what the government is doing. I don't know yet what will make Nigerians protest, because when we took the street for hashtag
Hashtag
NSAS,
answers.
and it was bloody and it shot Nigerians up, I think we are afraid to go out on the street again, because we do know what the government can do. But despite these protests being bloody, it didn't stop the Kenyans from still voicing
Yeah,
their
yeah.
opinions concerning what the governor or what the president should do. I think that should be the same for Nigerians, that let's be vocal. Let's be out there saying what we want and what we expect from the president, and maybe we will be heard. I just don't know, Sele, but so far it looks like we truly can absorb a lot of things, and I don't think that there might be a warning, but I'm yet to see a Nigeria that will do what Kenya have done to the president and demanding that he does according to what will work for them as a country.
Rachel, I just can't help but cast my mind back to the hashtag as you said, and of course, Nigerians might not take it to the street again, but I believe that Nigerians will have a better way to actually approach things. Just
I
like you
hope
said,
so.
we're just giving this a long rope, and then it seems as if it's taken for granted. But one thing I believe is the fact that Nigerians are not stupid. The fact that Nigerians are quiet about all of these things that are happening, the policies that are not favorable to them, certain things that you just can't help but wonder what is happening. We saw our Senate getting SUV, and we just were like, okay, telling us to use bicycles, hearing our Senate president saying certain things that you just can't help but wrap your head
Let
around
it
and
go.
wonder, wait, is this coming from a leader? And there was a time in Nigeria whereby when you are outspoken, it's being tagged as hate speech. So Nigerians right now are being very, very careful of what they will say before you say something and then it's being used against you. But nevertheless, just like you said, we need to voice out, because it's better to voice out and then let us see what the body language will be, because for every reaction you see, Rachel, there was an action that actually prompted that. So let's just wait and hope that
Yeah.
whatever this is will not be our own. We don't want what happened here to happen in Nigeria, but we hope that our leaders will also understand with us. Let's take a look at the voice of liberty. Military established new commands in Kaduna. You can find detail of that in the paper. Uni Abuja appoint 41-year-old law professor as the acting VC. Some private jet used for money laundering and drug trafficking coming from the minister. Annual advertising column, we have IBAN chairman Ramalan calls for equity and transparency in Nigerian broadcast industry, where we're seeing that the chairman of the Independent Broadcasting Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Ahmed Ramalan, has called for greater equity and transparency in the Nigerian advertising sector. Kano plans special court for gender violence and child abuse. Southern governors plan 90,000 megawatts power, want state to negotiate new minimum wage. And we have the NEL fund approves student loan disbursement to applicant. National Assembly extends supplementary budget implementation to December 31st, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Nigerian Tribune, private illegal aircraft used for drug trafficking and money laundering. This is coming from Kenyamo, says federal government will probe licenses, clamp down on indicted operators. Details can be found on page 23. On minimum wage, each state should be allowed to negotiate with labor unions, coming from southern governors, as governors restate commitment to process for better wages. I design my shoes. This is coming from Oni. Explains why he doesn't wear wristwatches. Details can be found on page 16. EFCC chairman orders arrest of officers involved in Lagos hotel raid. Yahaya Bello seeks transfer of case to Kogi. Senate says no request yet for presidential jet. Details can be found on page 6. Still on the paper, Ogbomosho chief Imam Kicks as Shaun queries him over harsh conferment of religious titles. Sokoto Assembly refers Emirate Council Amendment Bill to committee. Details can be found on page 24. NUT berates federal government wants continuous funding of TRCN. National Economic Council meets silent on minimum wage. Approves $1 billion agri consortium initiative. Demands measures to end crude oil theft. You can find details on page 3. And so we can see that the National Economic Council was silent about the minimum wage. Yesterday, we started talking about whether we will see a decision at the end of the day. However, they are still silent about it. Well, you can find details of this story on page 3. Tinubu approves National Construction Household Support Program rollout, prioritizes Sokoto Badagry Highway. Details can be found on page 12. That's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Rachel, let's just go back to what you're saying about the NEC meeting being
Yes.
silent. And you remember yesterday while we were discussing, my fear was them coming up with an opinion of decentralization payment. And that is what they're coming up with.
Yes.
We're seeing the southern governors are saying that every governor should be left to go and discuss with his union what they will be able to pay. And you could imagine how painful it would be, Rachel, for you to realize that your friend that is working in Abuja and she's not even in the same grade level as you are. She's earning more than you are. Of course, you might say, okay, the states are different. It's cheaper to live in Plateau State than to live in... But then, nevertheless, we all give the same amount of, effort. We give the same energy. We give
the same working hours,
the same working
workload,
hours. So
and
why
all of that.
on earth do we have our governors being this way, Rachel? So are you telling me that from Wednesday to Thursday that you were discussing, you didn't come up with anything?
Nothing.
I mean, this is not right. This is not right. So just like we said, Rachel, from the body language of our governors, the minimum wage might end up coming up first quarter of 2025. Because that is what we see right now.
Yes.
If they are quiet about this, they will go back to their say, okay, now the governors will be meeting with the local government to discuss. And then the local government will say, okay, let us, what are we doing?
And unions at the state chapter.
So it's becoming, I don't know the body language. I don't know what to read out of it again. But I'm just hoping that let's just hear what they are quiet. So I mean that means we're yet to know what our minimum wage is right now.
It's disappointing. So it is disappointing, and this just takes us back to what we started talking earlier on concerning the government not doing anything and Nigerians also not doing anything about it. We can make the government listen to us strategically. We can do that if we are willing to, because this is not acceptable. You can bring monetary policies that has completely shaped the lives of Nigerians and then not do anything about it. Our standard of living have drastically dropped, that even our needs, necessities, you keep dropping them. We see that in the health sector, we see that in education, we see people going for concoctions. Gone are the days where people were afraid of any concoction, people would kick against it. But now people need to survive and it's becoming an option. So our needs, things that are necessary, are becoming luxury, are taking people's life because you don't know the damage of that concoction. You might feel better and there was no dose, there was no prescription, you don't know what it has done to your system, and you don't know what will be the aftermath of it few years later. You don't know, you develop something else and you'll be added to, and you can't even remember because there's no medical record of a dosage of what you took and all of that. I just hope that even at the state chapters for these unions, that they make the government do something sensible and reasonable. If we are coming to this level, that they do not compromise to the extent that the hardship just continues. if the governors are saying, let's go back to our state, then now is the time for the unions at the state level to like wake up and do good by their citizens. Because just as you said, it's the same work hours, it's the same workload. Because you are in plateau doesn't mean that when you are holding this position of a secretary, meaning the person in Abuja types more letters than you,
Of course
or
not.
does receive more. No, it's the same workload, it's the same work hours, the same 8 to 4 o'clock. It's the same workload and the same work, except for little differences left, right, center. But the fact that the same hours goes into this, we shouldn't see that much gap. But this is what it's going to mean at the end of the day. So let's just wait and see if eventually that's what the governors decide to go for. Now the body now is back to the state unions. Let's see what they will do about it.
Well, before we continue with the conversation, Rachel, let's just take this break. I believe our viewers will have something to say, so do well to drop that on our Facebook and YouTube. And when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We looked at a number of stories on the paper, the outcome of the meeting, the NEC meeting with the governors, where we are seeing that they're about what will be the new minimum wage. And then we're also seeing coming from the aviation sector, where Kiyamo is talking about he's going to work to bring down those who are using the aircraft for money laundering and other illicit work. So we have quite a number of stories we would love to hear your own inputs about. So do well to drop that on Facebook and on YouTube. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me. Thank you, Rachel. All right, I'm Sarah Elisha. Let's continue with the paper review, looking at the first newspaper. Try me in Kogi, Yahaya Bello begs the court. And then we have EFCC chief orders arrest of officers over nighttime raid on Lagos hotel. Court restrains Sokoto government from sacking traditional rulers. National Assembly approves extension of 2023 budget implementation to December. Senate denies approving new jet ascent openness to future consideration. More detail can be found in the paper. And we have Tinubu urging governors to secure food production for their people. Says, I am prepared to provide any support you need from me. More detail as well found in the paper. Kaduna police arrest bandit, spiritual leader, female gun runner in a major crackdown, where we can see the picture story showing the police parading those bandits and the spiritual leader together with the female gun runner and other suspects in Kaduna. And this happened yesterday. Kiyamo vows to crack down on illegal use of private aircraft for money laundering and drug trafficking. And we have a tragic end, how ex-Konga CEO Nick Omodia ended own life, and we've seen that this happened where he even sent a message to his brother in the US on how to share his wealth. So I believe that probe is still ongoing on what actually led him to ending his own life. You can find that story as well in the paper, and that's all in First News newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, CBN's move to scrap FX price verification system will stabilize market. This is coming from Rawani. Chelsea Man United battle for Lukman as Arsenal intensify Osimhen's pursuit. You can find details on page 16. On insecurity, fresh counter-terrorism operation kills 5 terrorists, hostages rescued. COAS calls for more efficiency in operations. Some private jets in Nigeria used for money laundering illegalities. Details can be found on page 3. National Assembly grants Tinubu's request, extends 2023 budget implementation timeline to December. Details can be found on page 9. The big story on the Matrix, food security economy. Tinubu unveils fresh plans, says I am prepared to provide support, but we must achieve results. States must work together to deliver on critical reforms to meet needs of the people. Federal government to provide solar-powered irrigation facilities to support farmers all season. You can find details on page 2. Tinubu forwards names of 3 PSC nominees to Senate. CBN raises 284.26 billion naira from latest T-bills auction. Senate will consider new presidential jet if necessary, says Akpabio. Details can be found on page 3. Finally, Sharon Oja unveils husband's face. This is for entertainment. You can find details on page 14. We have a picture story, NEC meeting. Some Nigerian governors at the National Economic Council meeting on Thursday. This happened in Abuja, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Daily Times newspaper, federal government committed to prosperity of MSMS coming from the Shetima. Federal government committed to prosperity of the medium and small enterprises. And we have the NGF assure workers of a better minimum wage, more detailed on page 4. Federal government stakeholders unite to end child labor in Nigeria. Don't stay abroad to destroy Nigeria. Army advises Nigerians. Detail found on page 9. And President Tinubu to governors, federal government ready to provide needed support to ensure Nigerians are relieved of hardship. Tax governors on food security and say states must work together to deliver on critical reforms. National Assembly extend implementation of the 2023 Appropriation and Supplementary Act to December 31st. No request for new presidential plane, but will consider if it coming from the Senate. Unijust ASU insists IPPIS is a scam, tax the federal government on approved welfare, where we see that yesterday they had a meeting that started as of 10 a.m. So part of the thing they were discussing was the fact that why the government is refusing to adhere to the 2009 agreement that they have. So we're seeing that another thing here is the fact that they are insisting that the IPPIS is a scam. So you can read more detail of what they discussed on page 9. We have the picture story where we can see the former governor of El-Rufai who record that he actually sued the Kaduna State House of Assembly. So you can do well to get the paper and read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On New Telegraph newspaper, World Bank is saying remittances to Nigeria dropped 2.9% to $19.5 billion. External reserves post record 5-month increase to $34.07 billion. Details can be found on page 25. Democracy requires constant nurturing, vigilance, says Abdul Salami. Oboriwori, Nigeria needs tested, proven federation account management. Teachers Union to federal government reverse decision to stop funding TRCN. Army promotes Nigeria's first Sandhurst-trained female officer. Details can be found on page 3 and 4. The big story is forest crisis. High-profile retail supermarkets more exits from Nigeria as sales drops 50%. Cargo clearing, multiple taxation orders fingered. You can find details on page 3. Army retirees lament poor fighting equipment as 6 major generals, 4 brigadier generals pulled out of service. Edo Ondo Guba PDP once against midnight announcement of result. ICAO security audit why Ghana, Uganda, Tanzania outperformed Nigeria. You can find details on page 7. Still on the paper, Tinubu attends neck mom on minimum wage as federal government approves $1 billion agri consortium initiative, demands measures to end crude oil theft. Senate will consider new presidential aircraft if necessary, a statement from Senate President Akpabio. We have a study tattoos may cause blood cancer. If you are thinking of getting one, you should know that it can cause blood cancer. Details can be found on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Ogun to commence allocation of houses to subscribers. And then the EFCC board is saying Africa losing $88.6 billion to illicit financial flows. Second legislative year, we must support executive to renew hope of Nigerians appeal to lawmakers. And on pilgrimage sponsorship, mixed reaction trail Nikon operation as governor slam inefficiency. 90 billion naira subsidy not for sponsorship but to help stranded pilgrims coming from Murik. National VC of Council of Ulama backs Governor Bago to probe on the Nikon. It's time to end pilgrimage sponsorship. Bishop Emma Isong blows hard, and I think this was part of the thing that was discussed since 2007 or 8 during the Goodluck Jonathan. Part of the things that Edwin Clark was talking about, we going back to. So you can read more detail of that on page 11. And then southern governors are saying minimum wage, we will pay what we
Tree of Works, Renewed Hope Legacy Road Infrastructure Project. You can see the map of Nigeria and where these federal roads are going to be constructed from what state to what state. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Tinubu approved rollout of National Construction Household Support Initiative. Gives governors 7 days to submit lists of support needed to ameliorate people suffering. Charges them to meet target on food security. More detail in the paper. Private jet operators used for laundering money, trafficking drug, Kiyamo declares. And we have also NNPC-backed surveillance operation uncovers illegal oil bulkery camps in Bayelsa State. And Akpabio saying no amount of blackmail will stop Senate from approving new aircraft for president. Senate House extend 2023 supplementary appropriation bill on December 31st. You can find that on page 5. Next, silent on the new wage, governors to keep engaging parties for resolution. Recommit to process better pay for workers. Southern governors seek to negotiate payable wage with workers. Federal government approves $1 billion agri-consortium initiative. 6 measures to end crude oil theft, and then meeting approves the NDPHC board members. More details found in the paper, and we have this picture story at the National Economic Council meeting. We can see some of the governors there, Governor Bago. We're seeing also Governor Sheyi Makinde, and then we're also seeing the governor of Lagos State as well. You can do well to get more detail of that, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, the big story, federal government rolls out 1 trillion naira palliative massive construction project. 3.7 million families to get 540 billion naira grants, 115 billion naira for assorted foods and others. Federal government to begin massive road and rail construction, CNG buses distribution in states and the Federal Capital Territory. NNPC to boost economy with $4 billion gas projects. Details can be found on page 22. Governor eyes vaccine donation as case hit 1,579 for cholera outbreak. Blackmail can't stop new presidential jet approval. The statement from the Senate on 2023 budget. Federal government okays December extension to forestall abandoned projects. More details can be found on page 2. Federal government raises fresh 284 billion naira as T-bills debt hits 10 trillion naira. Probe begins as ex-Conga CEO allegedly jumps to death in Lagos apartment. States hold negotiate minimum wage. You can find details on page 29. This is a statement coming from the Southern Governors, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, investors mobilize $50 million to boost CNG adoption, coming from the federal government. Pro-Wike Group fault Fubara's claim on bumping of Rivers Hotel. Also, we have an oil theft surveillance operative uncover oil bunkering camps in Bayelsa State. And the big news is on minimum wage, where we have let each state negotiate what it can pay. Coming from Governors, Tinubu next silent on minimum wage, public and private workers getting retrieve over delayed minimum wage. This is coming from Labour. Wants Labour leaders to push for a quick resolution, lament hardship becoming unbearable with basic necessities no longer affordable. We are not happy with Tinubu's slow motion, coming from SANU, which is the Senior Association of Nigerian Universities. You can find that on page 5. How democracy activists made mistake of a lifetime in 1999, coming from Shehu Sani. You can find out why he said that on page 8. Also, we are having Tinubu approves 50,000 naira grants, 155 billion naira food packages for households. You can find that on page 8. Army promotes the first female officer, Olukochi, trained in Santo to a lieutenant. So that's really a good one. You can find that on page 8. And also we're seeing Chelsea join Man United, Bayern in pursuit of Lookman. That's on sport. You can find on page 37, and that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On business day, fully booked flights but no planes to fly. Aircraft shortage turns passengers to ticket scavengers, planes grounded on high cost. Naira boosts palm oil profits to 10-year high. Details can be found on page 13. Fearless funds roadblocks underpin gender financing challenges. We have no plans to exit Nigeria. This is coming from RT Steel. Details can be found on page 31. The big headline on business day, Nollywood Afrobeat 729 billion naira haul glams up economy. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 29, and that's all the news on business day newspaper.
All right, and that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you to all the crew members who made the program a success. We look forward again to doing this next week. Do have a blessed weekend ahead.